Hi, I'm Alma Langlois. Welcome to my channel where I discuss sexy and violent books and movies, because I believe that sex and violence are even better when they're gratuitous. So if you're the type who needs a trigger warning, if you enjoy warping your mind weekly, hit subscribe or share this video with all your friends just to ruin their day. Tonight I'm talking about a topic that's near and dear to my heart. Sex with Satan. Tonight's literary classic is a frothy cocktail of interdimensional demons, satanic mayhem, and spank material. Satan's Love Child by Brian McNaughton, published in 1977 by Carlyle Press. It's the first in the Salacious series, followed by Satan's Mistress, Satan's Seductress, and Satan's Surrogate. Marcia Creighton is a raven-haired newspaper woman / mom with a lot of melodrama on her hands. All she and her architect husband Ken do is fight and drink pitchers of martinis. That is when Ken's not out doing the devil's dance with an 18-year-old bimbo. To complicate matters, Marcia is still haunted by her years as a teenage runaway living in a hippie commune.
I never seen a commune before, but I don't know, I saw some pictures once in a magazine. It didn't look very clean.
Talk about horrifying. But believe it or not, it may have been even worse than forced participation in whiny folk music sing-alongs. Marcia can't quite remember, but in a fit of youthful whimsy at a Walpurgisnacht orgy, she may or may not have lost her virginity to Satan himself.
I said, man, I think we're in hell. He said, yeah, ain't it groovy? Groovy?
Now her supernaturally precocious teenage daughter Melody is having nightmares about an interdimensional demon brother who she says is trying to enter her body. You know, just one of those awkward teenage girl phases. But as another Walpurgisnacht draws near, a new cult of Mansonoid weirdos has moved into the woods, corpses are standing up and walking across the morgue, some unidentified creature starts devouring the locals, and good old Ken falls under the spell of the astrology-obsessed neighbor who really knows how to put the hoe in boho.
We just wondered where you were planning to spread your VD today, that's all, hussy.
Then the next thing you know, transformed into a prisoner of Luciferian lust, Ken stirring the molten cauldron of Madame Sestrology's lady parts in her Japanese stone garden. And then things get really weird. The sordid story of how Satan's Love Child came to be is that McNaughton was eking out a living writing pornographic paperbacks for a company called Beeline. Beeline wanted to break into the mainstream, and McNaughton was asked to write a horror novel ripping off The Omen. The head honcho of Beeline liked the book, but he instructed McNaughton to insert some hardcore sex scenes. Turned out the head honcho had recently left another publisher, and his contract forbade him from producing any book that other company would publish, which meant he could only publish pornographic books. So McNaughton proudly claims he's the only writer who's ever been required by law to write a pornographic novel. McNaughton wasn't pleased with the result and later released his own edition called Gemini Rising, but I personally find the combination of pulp occult horror and salacious sex to be so satisfying.
Oh, I like a good cigar, but I take it out of my mouth on occasion.
The sexual content makes the horror feel so much more perverse, and the sex makes the horror feel sleazier, so it makes for a more well-rounded experience. And with fewer and fewer people reading, maybe this is how we can make books cool again. Despite the satanic subject matter, I actually see more influence of Lovecraft in The Omen, especially the Dunwich horror. There's also a plot element that gets introduced, which is unfortunately dropped and not really expanded upon, that reminds me of Dreams in the Witch House, where the unique planes and angles of the family house Ken designed possibly providing a portal of entry for interdimensional demons. The Satanists even like to yell out Yog Sagoth during their gropey gatherings because I guess that's a turn on for somebody. Anyway, Satan's Love Child has all of the characteristics of horror pulp page turners from the 70s and 80s that I love. It's well paced, it's got lean and mean writing, and McNaughton has a knack for economic but effective characterization. And like many occult paperbacks of its era, it brings to light the dark side of the cultural changes of the 1960s. The consequences of new freewheeling lifestyles and their impact on the family, the introduction of the occult and esoterica into mainstream suburbia, and the failures of self-indulgent baby boomers as parents, with their kids being left to raise themselves or having to be their parents' parent. It's fun for the whole Manson family. And speaking of Charlie M., in addition to Rosemary's Baby and The Exorcist, the biggest influence on the 70s occult paperback was the Manson family. More than a fair share of these books feature a scraggly band of occult hippie cults up to sex, drugs, and murder in the woods. And I, for one, am grateful to Charlie for ruining hippies. Honestly, hippies should have ruined hippies. And I know we've all had to choke on gag on this disgustingly romantic vision of the 1960s and how hippies changed the world until the last baby boomer curdles and dies. But vapid self-righteous people with bad fashion sense are really annoying. I'll spare you a rant, but in case you're wondering how I feel about hippies, on the downside, Satan's love child unfortunately fizzles out once it really starts cooking in the last third, and then uses some hasty but sloppy exposition to tie everything up in the last 20 or so pages.
Well, you're certainly a flop in some departments.
And that said, this is probably just me, but I really wanted to see way more Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf action between Marcia and Ken. There's just something about binge drinking and zinger-filled bickering that makes me feel all warm and fuzzy inside.
I hope that was an empty bottle, George. You can't afford to waste good liquor. Not on your salary, not on an associate professor's salary.
Anyway, I'm often guilty of making judgments about people based on the books and movies that they own. So I'll close this with a bit of wise advice. If you're dating someone and you go to their place and they don't have Satan's love child on their bookshelf, do not sleep with them. They just don't deserve you.